according to my family history, last labor experience. Like, my life was telling me don't hope, and still yet there was something rising up in me and saying, like, either now or never, because if this baby can VBAC, then I can hope for the next ones. Hey guys, I don't know if this video is going to be any good because my son is up and walking around, but I thought, let me just do this video, the VBAC questionnaire, the VBAC question and answer, and then we can have an ongoing conversation. Well, this video is how I VBAC'd, basically. It's different for everyone, but I felt like for me, I took some very key steps in preparing my body to go through labor and hope, which is the hardest part, for a natural delivery. If it wasn't clear through my video, my VBAC was non-medicated. I did not get an epidural, no painkillers, none of that, Motrin, Tylenol, whatever you want to call it. I got 0 of those, but I did get an IV because I was dehydrated. So that was one intervention, as well as they ended up breaking my waters when I was about to push. I was like, whatever. I've been in labor for 24 hours. Do whatever. You know, if you gotta break the water, break the water. But I'm sure probably would have broke it as I pushed, because how can you push a baby out and the water not break? But yeah, I'd probably bypass the water breaking this next time around, because I'm pregnant with my 3rd baby, if you didn't know that already. So the labor, from when my contractions really started, like I decided this is real labor, to when I delivered the baby was about 24 hours, almost exactly. Now, this was my 2nd baby. My 1st baby obviously is a VBAC. My 1st baby, it was a 33-hour labor, and then it ended in a C-section. Could it have been avoided? That's probably, for me, the question of the season. Could it have been avoided? I want to say yes. I believe it could have been avoided, and that is probably the hardest thing for me to deal with. I know not all C-sections could be avoided, you know, like if you are giving birth in a hospital that they don't deliver breech babies, then you're gonna get a C-section. But for me, it was that I got an infection called chromioitis or something. I got a uterine infection, and that basically stopped my labor. Mind you, my water broke at the very beginning. That's how I knew I was in labor. And then 30-something hours later was when, you know, we delivered the baby. Could I have kept going? I want to say yes, because Isaac, the whole time, my 1st child, was not in distress, and not at one point. But what happened was, it was an attempted home birth, and then after a good amount of hours, past the 24-hour mark, and after pushing and being really exhausted, honestly, I think I was nearing maternal exhaustion, if not that already. Like, I thought, like, am I dying? And that felt very real to me, because I was also dehydrated then. So it was something interesting. But I can do a separate video for the birth video of my 1st, because that was an event, and it was like, how do you get over the discouragement and what felt like a failed labor? And I know people say nothing's a failed labor, you know, you bring a healthy baby into the world. I agree. You know, I have no resentment toward my son, and I'm glad that he's here and got here, however, by any means possible. But, you know, as someone who wants to have more than 3 children and is not wanting to have them all C-sections, I really wanted to get through what happened with my 1st son as I was looking forward to preparing for the next babies. And so that's just a little bit about the accounts. And so some people VBAC by mistake. You know, my husband's grandmother, she said she had a C-section with her 1st, and on the delivery table where she was supposed to get a 2nd C-section, she ended up delivering their 2nd child, or her 2nd child, which is Isam's dad. So it's interesting. Some people it's no problem, and then for other people it's like it was work, mentally and emotionally. And for me, I feel like I was the 2nd. So how I VBAC'd, we decided to try for the second baby about 3 months postpartum, and I've mentioned this before. We were just like, we feel like we should just go for the next one, and so that's what we did. And I got pregnant. Of course, the thought right away was, what if this one ends in a C-section? And I wanted to right away. I knew that a VBAC was an option for me, since it wasn't, my labor did progress eventually in that long labor. You got smoothie all over your face. My labor did progress, but it was really slow. And my mom had 3 C-sections, so that was the hard part. My mom had 3 C-sections, so how did I know that I was promised something different, that I could even do something different? You want to sit with mama? He's looking crazy. Everybody got boogers and smoothie, and before we go to church, he's getting a shower for sure. You don't have any more smoothie in there. Do you want mas? Can you say mas, please? Can you say mas, please? Mommy. Okay, we're gonna go get him some smoothie and then we continue. So, wanted to VBAC, and I knew this second one was going to have to be a hospital birth. So I decided early on that if I was going to do a hospital birth, it was going to be unmedicated. Supposedly I was at 9 or 9.5 centimeters of it at some point with my first, and then I got the infection or something like that. So I knew that I was able to get to the end or the finish line without meds, although I was dying the first one. Not literally, actually I don't know that, but I was pretty overwhelmed with the first, but I was able to make it to 9, and I'm like, you know what? Second time around, no more what to expect. I think I could do it without meds. So I decided that in my mind. That being said, I don't feel any type of way for anybody who wants to get epidural. Get your epidural if that's what you want to get. But if you don't want to get it, then I empower that as well. So I knew for me, I wanted my body to know how to labor, because I ended in a C-section with the first, so I needed to let my body experience the whole process, the real process the second time. So bang, I decided that. And I had to be pretty firm in my mind, because even though I went to a hospital for my second, from the VBAC, even though I went to the hospital, I was looking for a midwife. I knew if I'm going to VBAC, I need to improve my chances by having a midwife as my care provider. So I found this hospital in the Bronx called North Central Bronx Hospital in New York City, and they have an amazing midwifery program there. And they do have doctors too, so if you had any strong complications during your pregnancy, you would get switched over to doctor. You don't really have a choice. So I went that route. Got my midwife, started my care pretty early on. I think I was in a nearby hospital for the first trimester because I was like, whatevs. And then for the second and third, I said, time to switch to where I'm gonna labor. And that's what I did. So those were the first 2 things I did. Decided early on that if I was gonna do a VBAC, I was gonna have to set myself up for a VBAC. Then the other part, which is a little bit less tangible, was the mental work of my midwife was still very much like, girl, you know, she didn't say girl, but she was like, there's 40-something% chance that you will be able to do a VBAC. And I get it, you know. People say you want to get your expectations realistic. For me, I didn't want to have real expectations. Let the situation bring the expectations. But for my mind, I needed to be strong. So I was like, I told her, I get it. That doesn't make a difference to me. So I saw a doctor, an OB, once during the process, because she had to walk me through the chances and the VBAC calculator, and I was like, this is my prayerful response. I get it. Whatever. I'm going. They even told me that something about the positioning of, I don't know if it's my uterus or something, it was like far back or like far up. And in my head, I'm just like, when babies are ready to come out, things move around, and I trust that if the Lord gave me this body, that, you know, it could deliver a baby. So that was that. So I'm going along my pregnancy, and everything is panning out well. It wasn't as easy as my first, but it was a pretty easy pregnancy. I didn't have too much nausea or anything like that. I was having another boy, so it wasn't too different from when I had Isaac. Then I get to about 30 something weeks and I find out the baby is breech. And I'm like, and I posted a video on this and I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Just like, I'm over here trying for a VBAC and now the baby wants to be breech. Mind you, the whole pregnancy, he was head down, and then Isaac was always head down. So I was pretty discouraged at that point, and I said, I think it was about 32 weeks. Just pray about it and just hope he turns, you know, this happens, whatever. I went to the doctor a few days later. That baby was in the exact same position, and at that point in time was when I decided either I'm gonna take this pregnancy, you know, as it comes, laying down, or I'm going to make an effort.